Swell has been going on for I think like two and a half days now. I have been hard pressed to find any website talking about Swell. No one's talking about it.
I was expecting some kind of price action for XRP in a pre-swell movement.
That Swell 2019 is over. All the hype for Swell, all the hype, all the hope for great news and everything, and then XRP is gonna go up, and it tanked. It actually went down. Beginning of Swell, we were all headed up towards maybe 31 cents or 31.5, right? We were all going higher, and then it took a dump, right? And then after that, it even went down even lower.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of expected to have something announced, that would move the market again, and we'd be racing towards, 47 cents at least, something, through Swell. And as I shoot this video, we're 28 cents again.
What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining me for another video. It's your host, Crypto Glenn. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate it. Coming off the heels, I wanted to wait a little while before we kind of unpacked the events that happened at Swell. In fact, I'm going to do a totally separate video about that. Today's video, however, is about the current state of expectations in not just the XRP community, but in crypto in general, even though we're going to talk majorly or entirely probably about expectations in the XRP community. If you've been following this channel for any period of time, you guys know I am a huge advocate for keeping things objective, doing factual reporting. Just whenever I do a video like this for you guys, if I'm going to talk about anything that could be looked at as a hyperbole, I want to try and give you guys supplemental facts. I just don't want to be providing conjecture and hearsay, which is something that honestly I see a ton of YouTubers doing in the space, more so in the Tron and XRP community. Swell took place last week, and needless to say, it didn't really meet the expectations of a lot of people. I know we were talking about waiting until the end of Swell before we kind of gave our final verdict on it. Swell's been over for about 2 days now, a day now, and it's safe to unpack this. I mean, we're looking on Twitter. I'm seeing what people are saying. Again, those of you that follow me on Twitter, I had published this tweet November 8th, just saying a message to the members of the XRP community. I'm watching the reactions of many of you following the events of SwellbyRipple. Not what most were expecting. We need to manage expectations moving forward and turn a blind eye and keep it factual. And again, that's just really what this video is about. I understand a lot of people invested in Ripple because there were YouTubers out there that were promising the moon, the stars, and everything in between and everything underneath. And quite honestly, following those people probably got you to invest a little bit more than you normally would have. And where has that left you now? Probably not in a really good place. I'm not taking a look here at the charts, but I'm sure we can here. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much the sell-off at Swell as it started to happen. We got a pretty decent spike to 31, and then we sold off, and we've been selling off ever since. And now we're currently sitting at 27 cents. And a lot of people were, expecting us to be somewhere, up above. And I did put out a tweet. I said, hey, if we do end up seeing a pump, it's probably going to be to 41. I wasn't saying we're going to be at $1. I wasn't saying we're going to be at $5 like some people were saying, 3 digits, 4 digits like some people were saying. If you go back and you look at that tweet here, gosh, I don't even know if I can find it. This is a tweet that I did with a big announcement with partnership with the Legacy Bank. Picture 1, the rocket taking off. Day 2, no major announcement, Challenger, and that's kind of what we had. Just the space shuttle that everyone thought they were going to be on blowing up. But I said, hey, if XRP does see a bit of a pump, it will probably be because, that the amount that we see is probably going to be close to about 41 cents. And then historically at what XRP does going into swell and then what it does after. It's no fact that the sell-off usually happens after the fact, but normally we tend to see a little bit of an increase in price action going into swell. So I had taken an average between the last 2 years, and what that average told me is we were going to be at about 41 cents going into swell. So that's kind of where I had parked my hypothesis about where we might be. I did take a look at all of the live coverage that we were getting from members of the XRP community and members in the crypto community. And, one thing is very, very apparent and clear to me, that Ripple, XRP are playing in a relatively small market. And that's something that I tried to make apparent to one individual on Twitter. And if I can find it, you'll see what I mean here. It's actually a gift I saw. I thought it was pretty funny. You'll actually see what I mean here. When you look at the market that XRP is playing in, they're really in an emerging market. Now, there's nothing wrong with an emerging market. I just think a lot of people maybe have different expectations as to what the reality is of the emerging market. An emerging market is a market that's coming online. It's not already yet established. So a lot of businesses in emerging markets aren't doing typically the sales revenue. They're not doing volume in terms of, what we're talking about here in XRP. So you're not going to have the big profit taking days that you would, in fact, if you had a legacy bank. And if you were following me on Twitter at Crypto Glenn through this whole entire swell event, you would notice that I said, hey, XRP is going to need a legacy bank in order to meet the expectations that a lot of people have, right? A legacy bank like Citibank, Chase, Bank of America. And I know, I know Bank of America had been testing Ripple, but they're not using it. And again, guys, I know there's a lot of information that's out there. Oh, XRP and Ripple, they've been partnered with this company. A lot of that information is fake publications. And I want to see if I can, give me just a second. Okay, so this is a tweet that Flea_Hefner had kind of written to me on Twitter when I basically said that there was a list making its way around Twitter about all the people that that Ripple had named that they're working with. And I'll be honest with you, on the list, to me, it seemed like a bunch of no names. So this individual had retweeted me. He tweeted at me rather, and they said, hey, Citibank is actually working with Ripple. American Express is working with Ripple. Are these no names? And I said, Citibank isn't exactly working with Ripple. Gosh, I don't know if you guys can see that. Boom. Okay. So this is basically a report that Citibank had put out, basically giving their interpretations of XRP and the project that Ripple was doing and how they felt about it. And basically what they said is, we believe that RTXP, and I guess this is like the program that they were looking at or piloting. They said, we believe that RTXP, is unlikely to be a huge benefit to tier 1 banks. Again, guys, these are the legacy banks that I'm talking about. The Chases, the Bank of Americas, the Citibanks, the Wells Fargos, the Deutsche Banks that I'm talking about, and large value payments. This is because the system would still have to rely on large banks to be connectors. So just because you see a name on a list doesn't necessarily mean that there's a direct partnership that's going on. A lot of times, look at it like the auto manufacturers, right? A lot of time, if majority of you guys are in the States, so I'll use like General Motors or Ford. A lot of times these guys will buy the competitors' cars and trucks to see how they're engineered, so they can see if their products that they're putting out are on par with that. That doesn't mean that they're doing a partnership with Ford or GM or Fiat. It just means they want to investigate and see what's going on in the space. That's all Citibank was doing here. They had taken a look at Ripple and what they were trying to do with XRP, being a tier 1 bank, a legacy bank, to see if this would add some kind of value. And honestly, it didn't. So I was telling someone else that I said, hey, what Ripple and XRP are doing is they're playing in a relatively small market. The banks that they're working with aren't even on the same stage as the world's largest banks. His name was Patrick, and you can't even see the conversation that we were having because after, he said I was wrong, and I basically flooded his timeline with facts here. He just tapped out and didn't want to have the conversation anymore. And to me, guys, if that's who we're dealing with in terms of investing in cryptocurrency and really just investing in general, that tells me a lot. That if I'm having a conversation with you, that you're not ready to be looking at this through a mature lens, right? So I basically said, my point being that Southeast Asia isn't as big as legacy markets, and compared to legacy markets, they're small potatoes. You need to learn how to do more than just watch YouTubes when doing your research. And, I kind of supplied them with screenshots of articles. This was a good one that's put on by McKinsey. It's a consulting group. I believe they're based in the United States. They're talking about the Asia Pacific, emerging markets. Here's another article that was talking about forget other emerging markets and focus on Southeast Asia again as an emerging market that was put out last quarter of this year. Another one here, emerging markets, talking about Southeast Asia, the growth, the economic sustainability, some of the hardships that they had faced and how they're going to overcome the majority of those obstacles. Another article here just kind of, talking about the same thing, except now just not just Singapore, but we're also looking at the Philippines and Malaysia more notably. So I was telling this guy, I said, hey, if you look at it like sports, Southeast Asia isn't a major market. It's not like, again, I'll use the United States for an example because I think that's where the majority of you guys are looking. Last time I looked at my analytics, they're not like the Yankees, or they're not like the Rangers, or they're not like the Lakers, or they're not like a major market team, right? When you look at free agency, where do people want to go? They want to go to big markets, right? The banks that Ripple is working with, these are not major players. So that brings me to my next point in terms of managing the expectation. I think a lot of you, and I'll say this because I'm a member of the crypto community, having invested in cryptocurrency, and because XRP is a cryptocurrency, that therefore makes me a member of the XRP community. My obligation to you all is to make sure that the things that I'm saying on the other side of this mic are as factual and as objective as they can possibly be. Because I can tell you to go out and do your own research, and you should, but I understand there's a lot of people who just aren't going to do that. So because of that, I have to make sure that the information that I provide to you isn't sensationalized like other YouTubers are going to do, and it's not hyped up like I know other YouTubers are going to, say. And one person that comes to mind of that is, Sam I Am. I've had a very, very big gripe with people who are claiming these lofty claims. Oh, XRP's been written into trade agreements, and it's going to be a world currency, and they're going to tie it to gold, and the true value is going to jump up to 7,000, or they were getting their ideas from cartoon bears or people who were supposed to resemble the Riddler out of Batman. And it's like, you understand that someone had to animate those drawings. Someone had to create those drawings. What would give that person who did those animations insight as to what was truly going on? The other thing is, a lot of times when world-changing policy is being implemented, it's not something that is known to the common man, right? And I get it. We all like escapism, which is why movies do as well as they do. But when it comes to your investing, you have to remove emotion, and you have to remove the sensationalism out of the equation. Otherwise, we're going to have the kinds of reactions that we have. People were promised the sun, the stars, and the moon, and everything in between, and they got nothing. Because they chose, I wholeheartedly believe, they chose to believe what YouTubers were saying versus what executives at Ripple were saying. Because I know when I listen to Joel Katz, I know when I listen to Brad Garlinghouse talk about what they're trying to accomplish with Ripple and using XRP, it's a stark contrast between what I'm hearing other YouTubers say. And that should be something that everyone who is hearing me speak right now takes into context. This is one of the reasons why I did not want to invest in Ripple, because I felt the space was just running around with people who weren't doing their homework and were just taking hot takes and using that as their investment guide. The people that you are listening to daily, weekly, monthly, however long it takes them to drop a video or however often they drop a video, they have an obligation to you to keep their reports factual. And I understand a lot of people are going to say the things that they say and hype things up, sensationalize it, because they just want to, get the subscribers and get the viewers and drive monetization to their channel. If you notice, I don't have monetization on my channel because for me, that's not what it's about. That's not what it's about. I look at this chart and all these other charts and I figure out which one is going to put me in the best position to make money. I'm not married to any of these coins. The only project I absolutely wholeheartedly would not get into is Tron, because I just generally can't stand it. I just do not like Justin Sun. But outside of that, if XRP is looking like it's showing me a pattern that's going to allow me to make money, whatever, I'll invest into it. But I think the reasons why I invest in the XRP and I think the reasons why other people invest in the XRP are two totally different things. These plays that I make with XRP or that I'm thinking about making with XRP, there's very short time frames. I want to get in, I want to get out. I was taking a look here at the charts of what I thought, might happen at Swell. And I had a couple checkpoints put in place, and it's not on this chart, it's on a different chart. But I said, if by the time we get to day one, if I see price action that looks like X, I was going to make a play of $10,000 in the XRP. Yeah, but I had safeguards put in place, and I said, if I don't see this, or if I see, the opposite or the counter, then I'm not going to take that $10,000 and I'm not going to put it into to XRP. And I didn't. And look, we went down. And I think at that point we're at about 28. Do you know how much money one would lose if they had pushed in with $10,000 at 28 cents and we went down to 27 or 26 cents? That's a decent amount of money. My point is that if you're viewing this channel, if you have subscribed to this channel, I owe it to you an obligation to keep things factual, to never lie to you, to keep things as objective as I can, and to never sensationalize things. And the things that you guys want to know about, if you leave them in the comment section below, we'll talk about it. How do I honestly feel about Swell? Well, if you watch some of my other videos, or if you were following me on Twitter, I kind of had a feeling it was going to go the way that it went. Not a whole lot of news, nothing really to write home about. Just another year. How do I feel about XRP? I think if you're trying to hit a home run on XRP, I think there's a couple things you have to keep in mind. This is probably going to be a 10-year investment. At least 5 to 6 years, 10 years on the long side. And with that being said, I think the other thing that you have to keep in context is in that 10 years, a lot of things can happen. Other technologies can catch up. Other companies can start up. They can have better salespeople. They can have better programmers. They can completely knock Ripple into a number 2 or a number 3 position. Or Ripple could do exactly what it is that they're looking to do, and they could knock it out the park. But if this investment is going to take 10 years, I think it says a whole lot, and maybe people need to really strongly consider their investing positions and how much they have at risk. All right, guys, that's all I got for you in this one. Till I see you in the next one. Peace.
It can be a little disheartening. I sent out a post this morning on Twitter that I think it's okay to be disappointed. I'm disappointed.